Well, hello, I'm Ted Gardner. I'm an interviewer for the Library of Congress Oral History Project here at the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. And we're very, very fortunate to have with us today, and for me particularly, an old friend, Russ Coburn, who we're going to find out all about here during World War II. Dennis Daly is our videographer here. One of the stalwarts in the Great History Department of the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. And Russ, we are here on a very wintry day. Does it remind you of the CBI at all?
No. Well, the mountain snow. Mountain snow,
right.
But not the valleys.
Okay. Well, let's get started. Where were you born, Russ?
Not far from here, Dayton, Ohio, and moved to Cincinnati in 1959.
59. Okay.
So this is
okay. So where did you go to school there in Dayton?
Went to Fairview High School and graduated there, of course.
Uh-huh.
And what else you want to know?
Well, tell us about your family.
Oh.
Tell us about boyhood and growing up a little bit.
I was always was and still am very health conscious.
Right.
So I'd never smoked, never drank, and I wanted to be healthy. That was my goal. So even today I am healthy.
Yes.
With no medical problems of any nature. And I ran track, and I was on the tennis team, that type of thing. And had a paper route. I ushered in a movie as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Had a car my grandfather bought for me, a 1931 convertible
Oh boy.
Chevrolet and rumble seat. You remember those? Which kids did at that time didn't have that.
What year
luxury.
were you born?
25.
25.
Uh-huh.
So
Right
you
on.
finished high school in
43.
43, class of 43.
Yeah.
But did you work through high school with a paper route and so forth?
Always had some type of job going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Bicycles and going to. Now in Cincinnati, it seemed like they didn't have paper boys like we had them up there. They just threw it out on the step or something. But that was a good job.
Right. Right.
Earned enough to keep the gas in the car.
Now, where were you, and do you remember it clearly like most people do, December the 7th, 1941?
Oh, I can see it right now.
Yes.
I was an usher at Dale Theater, in Riverdale Theater, and I went there that day, and at noon or whenever it was, went out and they had newspapers about the attack on Pearl Harbor. So that's exactly where I was. You remember too, don't you?
Oh, I should say.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a highlight of a person's life. Your family, you had brothers and sisters?
Brother, 6 years younger.
Uh-huh.
And I graduated in 1943 from high school in first part of June, and then August 5th went into the aviation cadet program.
Oh, you did? And where did they send you?
First thing we did, we went to Keesler Field for basic training.
Mississippi.
And then, that's right, and then after that, went to, believe it or not, Ted, Indianapolis, back to Butler University for 1 semester.
Oh.
That was part of the program.
Right, right. That was a nice deal.
And that was a good deal,
I
yeah,
should say so.
at Butler. And so then,
And what were you? What was the concentration there on that quarter?
it was more preparing you for, I guess, being an officer, that type thing. And also I got some credits, which helped me when I did go to college.
Sure.
So that helped me with I had a lot of electives and everything.
Oh, that's great.
Then we went to Keesler Field and then Texas for classification. But that's when this was January of '44, I guess. And they didn't need pilots very much anymore, Ted. You remember that?
I remember that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So we took, they gave different tests, and I always was musical like you. And you hear this code. They say, all right, is this the same as the other sound? And you
Yeah.
You know that?
Oh, yes.
And I could that was distinctive to me, the various code, dits and das. So they said, okay, you're going to radio school in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Wow. You were
That
getting to
was
see
winter.
the country, weren't you?
Matter of fact, it was about this time of year. It was January.
Uh-huh.
Very cold and nice. So we were there for a number of months. And what else is there?
Well, let's see. Yeah, in South Dakota, that was sort of a different experience for you. A little different from Ohio.
Quonset huts and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Right.
But I enjoyed the service, like I think most people
Yes,
did.
exactly.
And so that was,
Well,
first of all, I might mention this,
yeah,
Ted.
please.
It was September of '44, the first one overseas, and we went to England and with C-47s, and evidently the purpose was to help supply General Patton in the Battle of the Bulge.
Mm-hmm.
But when we got there, it was pretty much taken care of. They didn't need us, so as a result, we guarded some prisoners of war, German prisoners, and then that's a very short period of time. Then after that, lo and behold, they got a transfer to CBI from all of
What's that? I bet you.
Well, that's right. That's right. What was that? But we stopped in the plane. We stopped in Paris on the way. We found a way to stop at Rome.
Wow.
We found a way to stop at Cairo.
Boy, you got a nice
And
trip out of that.
all
didn't
that.
you?
Then we went to India.
What were you flying? What kind of, was there transport?
It was, yeah, C-47 DC-3.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The Goonie bird
Yeah.
that they call it. It's still around. It's built. They were built in the 1930s
Yes.
or maybe latter 20s.
Extremely durable.
Durable.
Wonderful planes.
They used those mostly for the hump, but they used C-46s.
Yeah.
But they C-46s are much larger.
Now, from Cairo, for example, was that sort of the hop off to India?
Yes.
And where'd you land in India?
We landed in Calcutta.
Calcutta.
I ran into my best friend there. That he also went in cadets, and he became a navigator.
Mm-hmm.
And on the base going down in Calcutta, someone yelled at me, and here it was Bob.
For God's sake.
My best friend played tennis with him.
Isn't that?
And he was in the service, and he flew planes over from the States over there. Then they would go back and do it again.
How about that?
So that was interesting.
Oh, I should say.
Very
Well, now,
interesting.
gosh, getting to a place like Calcutta, India, very, very, so different from our way of life and everything.
Well, the whole place was. I remember being in rickshaws and these little skinny fellows pulling me around I appeared to be a great big guy to them. It was kind of funny, mostly in China, though that was.
Uh-huh.
So let's see what else, Ted.
So you were there, there was a big base in Calcutta, was there?
Yes, it was a big Air Force base. And then we shipped out to Shabwa, India, for a couple of months, and then finally into Missional, Burma. And that's right on the Irrawaddy River, coming down the mountain streams. The water is just very cold,
Right.
and it was really cold. But even there, I would still exercise. I'd run.
Mm-hmm.
I never stopped. I was telling Dennis, I always was interested in health.
Yes.
Used to read all those stories. Remember Joseph Altschaller,
Uh-huh.
about Indians around this area and the
as I remember as a boy too, and you certainly would too, remember this. When we were maybe Boy Scout age, we were admirers of Charles Atlas.
That's correct.
And you could send off for his strengthening course.
Dynamic tension, dynamic tension.
Dynamic tension.
Right.
Right.
So we could kick sand in the guy's face on the beach.
Yes.
Remember
right.
that?
Exactly.
That was an ad in the paper,
Yeah.
ad in the book. Little skinny guy.
Yeah.
And this big guy come up and kick sand in his face, and he decided he's going to be strong, so he went with Charles Atlas.
Exactly right. Oh, that was such fun. I can remember sending off for it. I sent $1 for it or something like that, and came back in the mail, you know, envelope full of all kinds of hints and programs and everything. That was great stuff.
Whatever we do in life, as you know, it's a step in our later life, the steps you take. And I still think of people today that do not take care of themselves.
Yes.
And you go to nursing homes,
right,
and see what that situation is. So I hope that our people will start becoming more interested in health and other stuff.
Well, I'm sure you've imparted this to your family too through your life.
Very much.
Absolutely.
Very much did.
All right, now let's see here. We're in Calcutta, and then you're up to Burma, along the Irrawaddy River. And what a part of the world that was or is. And so, what were they telling you about being in the China-Burma India theater?
Nothing.
Typical.
No, they say here. Well, we had an airfield there, a little airfield. It had been a city or a little village, I guess, with tents and so forth. And the Burma Road came up through that way. And then, so it stopped, evidently. It hadn't been completed. So our job was to take this fuel, airplane fuel, gasoline, and carry it over the hump, primarily into Kunming, China, for the planes over there. And then I forget, Ted, how long of a period it was. It must have been 3 or 4 hour flight, I think.
I heard it was a long
It
flight.
was, but of course these C-47s never went over, 140, 150 miles an hour, I guess. So we'd land at Kunming, and we would get out of the plane and have eggs. And I remember the Chinese knew how to talk a little bit of English, and they'd say, how many eggs, Joe? I said, 1 or 2 eggs.
Yeah.
So then we would do that, unload and go back, and we'd see these vast hordes of people working on the airfield with hammers, breaking up the stones to make the airfields.
Yeah.
So we did that. That's about what we did.
Life was cheap in those places in those days too.
Hasn't changed a lot.
Now, when you were in the transports flying the hump, and for those who don't know that term, the hump, tell them what that means.
Well, it's really the Himalaya mountains going between India, Burma, into China. Mount Everest, everyone knows what that is.
Sure.
And some of those mountains go to 18,000 feet or so.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking with Dennis, and we would fly 12 or 13,000 feet for some reason. I guess we went around the mountains, I don't know. But still, I could see, as I mentioned to Dennis, some planes that had crashed against the mountains, didn't make it.
Did you have, was it cold in the planes? Did you have to have heavy clothing on?
Well, I don't remember. I don't really remember that. So I was sitting back there at the radio, and the purpose was to send reports where you were at the time, but most of it was voice, Ted.
Right.
We hardly ever used code at all.
Really?
It was just, we're over this checkpoint and so forth. You may have to change the frequency, something like that. But to me, it was, in retrospect, it was a useless job.
It may have been useless, but you still remember the code.
Well, it was, yeah, it was there. It
Good
was,
old Morse code.
yes, that's right.
Well, that, you know, that is just intriguing to most people, because it's not only in a foreign land, but it was a foreign way of life and everything. Now, when you landed in places like Kunming and you saw the Chinese, did you ever see Chiang Kai-shek or anybody like that?
No, but I think the closest we ever came was kind of interesting. After the Japanese bombing of the Japanese Hiroshima, and they surrendered, we had a pilot. We had different pilots all the time. We rotated. And so he said, we were in Kunming, he said, let's see if we can take some, if there's some trips we can take, people need us elsewhere, rather than go back to Missional. So he arranged it that he would pick up certain things and we'd deliver them somewhere else. And finally, we had some big like trunks of stuff. And we found out it was money. And we flew over to Chongqing, and that was the capital of China at that time. And we went down the coast, and that's where I first became of the problem with the Chinese communists, and that they were just as much of a threat as the Japanese were at that time.
Yes.
So then we went back and to Missional. Eventually, then came back to India.
Did you ever encounter enemy aircraft or anything like that?
When we were there at Missional, we were there about a month after all the fighting came. Saw some wrecked planes on the ground, but no,
Wow.
no. I had a good time. Not a good time. I had a no problem time.
Well, that must have been very interesting when you got the word about Iwo Jima, and of course securing that as an airfield for the big bombers to go over Japan. So but you never got over Japan itself.
No. The only experience I had that it wasn't pleasant, it was when we go into China. I said we have eggs and turn around. So I picked up some really bad, maybe dysentery.
Oh boy.
So I had to be in the hospital for a month.
Really?
And that was awful. Yeah, I remember that.
Terrible.
I still remember the guy, the orderly used to even feed me. I still think of him.
Yeah.
So that's the only difficult. But then going back to my original interest, which I told you, as soon as I could get out of that bed, I went over and they had a punching bag, and I started punching bags, punching the bag. And
That's great.
I got back into good shape and all that.
Yeah.
All that.
Very, very important. And as you've pointed out, we all know people that didn't do things like that, and they're, But anyway, the period of time that you were there toward the end of the war, where were you now when you heard about the bombs dropping over Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
It must have been in Kunming.
Okay.
I think we were on the landing field.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That would be August of 45.
August 45. That's true.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you another thing, Ted.
Yes.
I never liked drinking. I told you before, smoking or swearing. And you know how it is in the service.
Yes.
Words. Never picked that up either.
Mm-hmm.
Never picked it up, vocabulary. As far as I know, my son or daughter, even now, they don't do it either.
Well, that it was so important, and I must say, I've never known a more moral man than Russ Coburn. Stalwart, upright, straight shooter, and a Christian, and all that great stuff. And the associations that you just spoke about, and the things to which we were subjected when I went in the Navy, I'd never smoked a cigarette, I'd never had a beer, never had a cup of coffee, and here was this stuff all around you all the time, you know.
And we valued we could trade cigarettes for chocolate milk.
Oh yeah. Oh, I welcome those free cigarettes. That was great because you could get so much for. Those were highly desirable by the people. Life in the camp, for example. You lived in a tent, and were you subjected to bad weather, anything like that?
Well, monsoons.
Monsoons?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
But overall, no complaints. It was like most fellows can say, I think, Dennis, you heard this often, it was a great time.
Yeah.
Great time, because the GI Bill, Ted.
Oh, that came, what a savior that was.
I had no thoughts of college. My dad raised in an orphanage. My mother was a farm girl, married. She was 15. Dad was 19.
Is that so?
And it wasn't anything about college, you know.
Uh-huh.
But I came back by ship.
Oh, now tell us about that.
Came back by ship, General Megg's ship, from Karachi, India.
General Megg's, yeah.
And I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I wonder if I could go to college. I'd never had any college prep. I didn't take hard stuff. So I think I'll try a year in college. Well, I did, and it kept going. And
of course. Finally
finished at Indiana U.
Oh, you're a Hoosier.
In that respect.
In that respect. Well, that's interesting. Well, let's go back a little bit now. We want to hear more about any humorous stories that you can think of besides being in the rickshaw and getting eggs and with people or with your buddies or your compatriots or anything like that. Funny things that happened in the air or on the land or.
I don't think so. The only fearful thing that I recall, which isn't it isn't funny, but these C-47s were DC-3s were very safe planes, you know. And then, of course, if you're flying over the hump, you got airplane fuel in the back,
right,
in big tanks at 35-gallon things. If you ever, anything happened, you're done, because all you got is forest underneath you.
Yeah.
So, and then we had, the only one time I remember, we had engine problems, and I thought I could jump out of this plane. But when the problem developed, I thought, I can't jump out of this plane.
I know.
I said, no, I don't think so.
No way.
No, so, oh, and the other interesting thing, Ted, was this. Not only did we haul gasoline and troops, but believe it or not, we hauled some mules.
Oh, mules.
Mules were their pack mules for the Chinese army.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd put, make stalls down with bamboo poles down there, across, and maybe carry 2, 4, 6, maybe 6 mules in there.
For gosh sake.
Yeah. And then I often wondered when we have a plane full of Chinese troops over Burma flying, I thought, what do we do if we have to get out of this plane and bail out?
Yeah.
And because nobody had parachutes. Right. We did.
Yeah.
And we decided we're going to take a wrench and walk back and say, we're going out on the plane to fix something, and we jump out.
Don't hang around for any questions.
No.
Oh my gosh. Well, that must have been really something. So you actually hauled Chinese troops.
Uh-huh.
How many would they put aboard?
Oh, might have been 20.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The DC-3 is not a big plane, as you know.
Right.
But they're with their packs and things like that.
Sure.
And
gosh,
all those things.
Let's
see. I don't know of anything.
Well, as we've both experienced, and most veterans have in that period, we made contact with people. You met people that you liked. You met some that you didn't want to have anything to do with. Have you maintained friendships, connections through the years?
No. Well, to me, some people have great interest in that type thing, but not really.
Go to a reunion
no, never,
or anything?
Never go to reunions.
Never go.
Never go into a high school reunion even. Just not in.
The past is the past.
The past is the past. I might think of some of the people, but because you know that the person you knew there is not the person now.
That's exactly right.
There's no communication. There's no parity between you two, and it's a disappointing thing. So I have no interest.
Well, you know, and we've talked to veterans here who had battle experiences, you know, in the ETO or in the Solomon Islands, and had compatriots lose their lives right alongside them and so forth, which in a way could be a very disheartening experience, of course. Well, I'm just fascinated by this CBI thing because, as you know, now we have here, you know, at this wonderful library on Veterans Day every November the 11th.
You speak, don't you?
Well, I have done that.
I know you have.
And there's always 2 or 3 fellas who wear their CBI caps, you know, belong to the association, and show up, and they're always greatly outnumbered because there weren't not very many of them.
I know. I know. Well, it gave me a time to see the world cheaply.
Yeah, on those stops now, flying from the States, you flew across to Paris, you say, you landed?
Well, we went to, from Nashville, I think it was, we left there.
Mm-hmm.
Went up to Bangor, Maine. We stopped at Goose Bay, Labrador.
Right.
And then across Greenland, stopped at Iceland, and then into Scotland.
Oh, yes.
And most of these things were overnight.
Right.
So then we went into England for some period of time, Wantage, England, which wasn't too far out of Oxford. And we did get into Oxford and
beautiful country.
Do that. It was nice.
Yes.
And that's the first time I remember being served Brussels sprouts. I thought they were small cabbages.
I know, they're a very strange vegetable anyway.
The other thing I remember about England and Scotland, but the young people, what bad teeth they had.
Oh, yes.
No care, it must have been the diets or whatever it was, but young people would have just scarred teeth and so forth.
Yes, yes.
That's not very interesting, but that's...
Well, but it is, you know, it relates to a way of life, and in those days, you know, the British Isles, people in the far reaches of them, like Scotland and so forth, didn't have the advantages of the big cities and so forth. Your stops then in, for example, in Paris and Rome, those were just short...
Overnights. Overnight stuff.
Didn't get to see the sights or anything?
Well, we went to the Folies Bergère.
Oh, good.
We got there at that time. But that's all. And then I remember going in Rome. We were there overnight. But yeah, we didn't know if they were friendly or not because they had been our enemies.
Yes, that's right.
And so I remember we stayed in this big place, and we didn't know whether it was safe or not, so we blocked the door so nobody could get in.
Right.
But no, I had a pretty good time, Ted. Pretty good time.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because despite the fact that Italy, for a period, was our enemy, the Italians really like the Americans, basically. You know, Italy loves America. And of course they sent so many immigrants to this country over the centuries, you know. Strong connections there. But So then, let's see.
Oh, I saw the Taj Mahal too.
Oh, you
in
did?
New
At
Delhi.
Agra.
Agra, India.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful place. It still is. I guess they renovated it.
Yeah.
Now it's really beautiful.
It's one of the great tourist spots of the world today. Yeah. I read articles.
New Delhi, we were in New Delhi for a while. That was a metropolis, a nice, attractive metropolis at that time.
Now, when you were there, of course, Gandhi was still alive, and he was kind of...
Never heard of him.
At that time.
He was a young boy, probably. No, he wasn't that young. But well, he probably wasn't that old either. At that time, in the 40s, he probably was in his 20s, wouldn't you think?
No, he was older than that.
You think so?
Yeah, he was in his 40s at that time, yeah.
Well, no, I'd never heard of him.
Yeah.
He'd never heard of me either.
You're even.
That's what I say. That's what
He's gone and you're here.
That's what some of these guys will say to me. You follow these sports, which I don't follow them at all. And they say, you know, you don't know this guy, this player? I said, no, but he doesn't know me, so what's the difference?
Well, now you came back, and I'm interested about also, and I know that your family will be interested in hearing about your trip on the General Meigs, the transport coming back to the States. Where did you leave from?
Karachi. Karachi, and through the Suez Canal.
Wow.
And Ted, I determined I was going to stay on deck as much as I could and get that wind in my face rather than get sick, seasick, and a lot of people did.
Yes.
And this brings back memories to you. I'd never been on a big liner or anything, and
oh yeah,
it was a thrill.
Oh boy.
And what was another interesting part, I came back on General Meigs, and my brother, 5 years later, went to Japan on the General Meigs.
Well, for heavens.
Isn't that strange?
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
You should have left your mark on the ship so he could look for it. You know.
Well.
Coburn was here or something.
Kilroy.
Kilroy. And that's something a lot of people don't know about too. But your experience on, were there thousands of troops aboard the ship?
Well, it seems to me, I don't know, but it was loaded.
Anyway.
And I know getting on a duffel bag and going up these metal steps.
Yep.
It was awful hard going up there.
Sure.
And of course, where you slept, you had that much space between that and the next person. But then we came into New York City, saw the Statue of Liberty, and that was a thrill.
Oh boy.
So
yeah,
it was. I think, I hate this. I don't know if this is true or not, but it seemed to me it may have taken about at least a couple of weeks to get back, Ted. Does that sound right to you?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
18 days or so.
Oh yeah. Coming across the Indian Ocean and Suez Canal.
Suez,
through
Port
the Mediterranean.
Port Said through there, and all that.
And people I've talked to have said how hot it was going across the Indian Ocean on a steel ship. There was a lot of heat.
And I don't remember too much of that. Of course, it was December.
Oh well, then
that was
that helped.
Different time.
But I know how you feel. You also, being out in the air like that, you could see where you were and everything. Of course, the long stretches of sea are a little boring, but
but you get, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then they go, you know, the ship's going like this, the big waves, and they go. You wait. But you can have the Navy. I don't think about that. You can have your Navy.
Yes, sea travel for some people is not too welcome.
No.
But it's to me and to your family who will see this DVD, you know, they'll appreciate what you have to say and your reflections on those times and the experiences you had, impressions you got at different places and from different people. And so when you got back to New York, you hit Manhattan.
Well, you might say we went through it probably.
Really?
Yeah, just to Indiantown Gap, I think, was our place. Indiantown Gap was
Oh,
the
yeah.
D-bar, or was the
And that
processing
was
for.
and that was taking the train, of course.
Yeah, I took the train. And I hadn't been home. Time I was went in the service, I never got any furlough or anything to get back, so I hadn't gotten back. And then I was discharged in December of '45, and then took the train home. And yeah, first train ride was going Indianapolis to Mississippi, and then so forth. Anyway, the Lord blessed me. Here I am, and here we are.
Well, here you are, and I can imagine what it was like, your family welcoming you home, and what a happy time that was.
You know that.
Boy, we know that so well, and I remember. As you mentioned, the GI Bill and the opportunity, you know, this is one of the great things that happened in the 20th century to this nation.
Ted, it just was whoever thought about that was amazing. Now, of course, they're trying to reinstate it and make it better for veterans now, but I'd say that most of the students at that time were veterans.
Yes.
Incidentally, I didn't mention though, when I got out, I didn't want to go away right away, so I went to the University of Dayton for a year and a half. Then I went transferred to Indiana.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And at Dayton, what did you start out in? Just a general?
Pre-law.
Pre-law.
And I thought, I don't know what I want to do. I didn't think that was it. So I took a general business course and with a minor in accounting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm a generalist.
Right.
Nowadays you have to be a specialist, you know that, mostly.
Yeah.
You got to know where you want to go and what you're going to do.
Right.
But then you could be pretty general.
And you transferred your credits were transferred to
took a lot of electives. I took electives from piano playing to wrestling to Russian to Russian as well as business courses. I just took everything. Agriculture.
Right.
I finished with a lot of credits. I didn't need them, but I just did.
But it was a tremendously broadening experience.
Yeah. Maybe I was trying to find myself.
Well, you know, we all had a lot of shuffling along to do before we got settled down. Well, your life, of course, you say 1959 you came to Cincinnati.
Uh-huh.
And why did you come to Cincinnati?
Well, I had become a treasurer of Hilltop Basic Resources.
Oh.
Hilltop Concrete.
John Steele.
Yeah.
Our friend.
That's right. I'd begun there. And
I didn't know that.
Did you know that?
No. John's a very close friend of mine.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh, I was with them 15 years.
For heaven's sake.
Well, we were very, well, he's my immediate boss. That's put it that way.
Sure, of course. So you were downtown here then, huh?
They were in Bald Knob over here, across Western Hills Viaduct, where the main office was.
Oh.
That's where I came down.
I see.
Yeah. They had opened their plants in Dayton, Ohio, and that's where I first went with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then 61, I forget. I think in 1951 I went with them till 1966.
Mm-hmm.
Then I left there. Eventually joined Walter Elliott Associates. Did you ever know that outfit? They did psychological testing and attitude surveys.
Yes,
with
I've
the
heard
industry,
of them,
with the attention to buying the business, which I did not. Then I went with New York Life in 1970. I'm still there, Ted.
Wonderful. And you've made a success of it, and they're very fortunate to have you on their team. I know that.
All right.
Tell us about your family now. You've got a very interesting family.
Beyond expectations. Pam, my daughter, she was Ted knows from singing, had a worldwide career in opera, Metropolitan Opera, leading roles, singing all over the world.
Gosh.
On television. I've heard her on radio and all that. And so that's been fantastic, as you know, Ted. You love music. She's done it. Now, at this stage of her life, she's a professor at DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. And she likes that a lot.
Right.
And my son is managing partner of big CPA firm, Clark Schaefer and Hackett.
Here in town?
Yep. And he is the managing partner. This is the biggest one they've got.
I didn't know that.
So
that's just
you know, and then three grandkids, if you want to know that. The one granddaughter was Miss Junior Teenager of Ohio.
Oh my gosh.
And the other one's a great athlete gal, and she's at now Texas State. The first one graduated from Northwestern. Now she's working on her master's at Nevada. And Carl, the grandson, is at Wittenberg.
Oh my goodness.
He was all-city soccer player. All great Christian kids. Straight as an arrow.
Right. They're lucky to have a grandfather like you, that's for sure.
Lucky to have them.
Now, when you got back after the end of the war, or at the end of the war, did you have a sweetheart before you left, or when did you meet your wife?
We went to high school together.
Oh.
But we never dated.
Didn't know each other.
She was the popular one, the May Queen, and she was all the big parts. And I was always a backward type guy. I never asked her. We always speak to each other. And then when I got out of the service and through college, and she went to Chicago Musical College, we started to date, and before long we got married.
How about that? Isn't that interesting?
Our birthday's the same day, same year, same date. We're the exact same age.
For heaven's sake.
She's 8 hours older than I.
That's a wonderful story. I'm sure your children and grandchildren know that story pretty well.
We were at a dance. I remember when we were going together. For some reason, we had to indicate our birth date on a piece of paper. I said, "You're supposed to put yours, not my birthday down." She said, "That's my birthday." That was funny.
That's very, very unusual, I should say. Well, at Bloomington now, I've always been intrigued by Bloomington. I'm not a Midwesterner or an Ohioan or an Indianan, and coming here from the West Coast 55 years ago was a very big experience for my wife and me. And I've always admired Indiana U very highly. We've been over several times to see a football game, see an opera. They have a great music program over there. Do you go back to Bloomington at all? Do you? No? You don't go back to at all, period.
You've seen dogs after they do their stuff, they go when I'm done with something, I'm out of it.
I understand. That's you're always looking ahead.
Well, I don't know where I'm looking, but I thought Pam, my daughter, was going to Indiana U, and I was happy about that. And about a week before she was supposed to go, I hear that she and her mother decided she was going to DePaul.
Oh, for God's sake.
So, that's all right.
It was news to you, huh?
All news to me.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, now your wife is still with you?
Yeah. Yep.
And you two now in your 80s and enjoying life together.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah, sure.
I'm active. Did I mention it to you, Dennis, or not? I'm actually ordained minister at our church, Faith Christian Church in Newtown.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't preach. I do a lot of other stuff and so forth.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So we're very active, and she arranges all the music, the offertory things. used to direct the choir.
How about that?
And those are my two interests, my work, the church, exercise 3 days a week, as you
Right.
know. And yeah, that's it. That's my
Yeah.
life.
And attend Rotary Club every Thursday?
Almost every Thursday.
Absolutely. Well, Rotary is fortunate to have you, one of the stalwarts, and it's interesting over the years how you and I have seen things like Rotary evolve and change, and a variety of directions and so forth.
Yeah.
But your church experience, of course, and your church dedication shows so well, Russ, in your way of life. And I want to
Thank you.
express that
Thank
and
you.
want people to know about that. I've always admired you, and the fact that your beautiful daughter with such a glorious voice and everything, and have seen her at the May Festival here in
You're right.
Cincinnati and the Summer Opera.
You have, haven't you?
And
Yes.
you've introduced me to her, and that's been a enriching thing for me. Well, I've got to get a hold of Steele and tell him, for heaven's sakes, Russ Coburn. Well, that Hilltop has done very well, and they're still.
Now the son's
Yes.
running it.
Yeah, Bim.
Bim.
Bim's there. Yeah, yeah. Well, as we look back on those years, and now we're looking back over 50 years, it is truly remarkable what we went through, you know, what we experienced, and I know you feel that way. Being a historian particularly, I'm a guy that looks back a lot, and sometimes my wife says I live too much in the past, but that's another story. But again, what you have imparted to your family, and they're honest, and they're Christian, and they're straight, and they're healthy, and all those blessings of life.
Blessings is true, Ted.
Isn't that it?
Blessings beyond expectation.
Oh my gosh.
Closest can be with the grandchildren.
Right.
And my son and I, well, of course, he's very busy, but we work out. I work out 3 days a week, and he works out generally with me a couple of days. If he can't make it, he work out somewhere else.
Okay.
He's a
You
big
do
guy.
that downtown here?
YWCA.
Oh, over
Yeah.
here, right across the street. How
Yep.
about that? Well, that's just great. Well, I'll tell you, it's been a unless you can think of some other instance that comes to mind. I know with you're not looking back, maybe. But if there's anything at all, any experience or something that comes to mind, we've just got a few minutes left
Well,
that you could tell us about.
I got one favorite expression, my friend, and I composed this. Now listen to me. It takes me a long time to learn something, but once I learn it, I forget it very rapidly.
Thanks a lot.
But you can see the other guy, the other guy, I knew what's coming.
Sure.
And then suddenly you say, I forget it very rapidly. That's what I like about it.
Well,
Hey, Ted, and the other thing, you didn't ask me this.
No.
What was my rank?
Well, right. What was your rank?
Well, here's what I say. People ask me my rank, and I say, well, I would have stayed in the service. I kind of enjoyed it if I could have kept my rank, but I couldn't do it. And I'll stop there.
Okay.
And what were you? I was PFC.
The honorable rank of private first class.
And that was made by Congress. If you're overseas for a year, you automatically became a PFC. Of course, being a radio operator, who are you going to be over? I mean, there's nobody to be over.
You were it. Well, your sense of humor is rare and wry and very solid. I like it. And
thank you, Ted.
well, this has been a great experience for me. I know that your family is going to enjoy, and you can you can sit with them and you can look back with them on this experience when you see the DVD, and you get a copy of that for you and your family, and a copy stays here in our public library archives, and a copy goes to the Library of Congress in Washington archives.
Dennis mentioned that.
So anybody in the world can tap in and get Russ Coburn.
Wow.
And get the story.
Hey, the only other notoriety that I have other than that then is I play just game aerial tennis. It's a wooden rack, face about like this, wooden, badminton, birdie. It's heavier than the badminton birdie. It's heavier, and you have a net. Here's my distinction. I have been the singles national champion twice, doubles 3 times.
Wow.
Of course, the reason for that, there's not a lot of people play it. I still play it.
You've always got a zinger.
I still play it over here, Dennis, if the YW, if you ever come over there and see it.
Okay.
It's fun.
All right. Well, that's great.
Thank you, Ted. You've done a very comfortable, wonderful job.
Well,
and I got to get to know you even more.
Well, it's
an
honor and a pleasure, and we thank you so much. And I know everybody is going to enjoy it, and the Coburn family will be richer for you.
Thank you. God bless you both.
That's it.